Hello, good evening. How are you all? Doing good? Awesome. My name is Ivan Salinas. I'm the programs manager here at Beyond Baroque. I want to welcome you all to the Wanda Coleman Theater. For those of you who may be new to the space, Beyond Baroque is a place dedicated to the possibilities of language. We are a nonprofit organization based here in Venice since 1968. However, we recognize that we are on unceded territory. We stand in solidarity with indigenous Tongva peoples who have endured colonialism and displacement. We stand against genocide and are committed to provide a space for indigenous artists and communities as they are the original stewards of this land. This historic landmark, which we stand, first functioned as Venice City Hall for about 70 years. It was a building made in 1906, but it has been a home for writers and artists of all backgrounds since 1978, when Beyond Baroque poets took it over and turned it into the international and interdisciplinary art space it is today. I invite you all to visit our website and sign up to our newsletter to stay connected with us and see the various programmings we have online for you. Tomorrow we have authors Jaime Balboa. Jaime is the founder of 826 LA, and we'll be reading alongside Terry Wolverton. They're both having new book releases in fiction, so they will be doing a bit of readings from their newest novels. And then later next week, we are having a retrospective of one of the poets that had their beginnings here, which is Bob Flanagan. And we are also doing a community memorial honoring the life of Jerry Garcia, who we recently lost. Aside from that, we also have workshops happening on Zoom every week. Monday nights, Raquel Baker facilitates a fiction workshop, and every Wednesday night, poet Ruja Mohasesi facilitates our Wednesday night poetry workshop. In the Mike Kelly Gallery, which is currently exhibiting Cutout, a group of collage works by LA-based artists, is curated by Jody Zellen. A big thank you to the Beyond Baroque team for making tonight happen and all our programs. Directors Quentin Ring, Jimmy Vega, who you will be hearing from in a tad bit. Our bookstore team and interns, Genesis Perez, Tyler Newfield, Nick Foreman. Just give them a round of applause for all their efforts. Thank you all. And lastly, I do want to shout out that you'll be seeing some of these postcards that we have in the space floating around. They are marking our the event date for our 56th. Well, it's celebrating the 56th anniversary of Beyond Baroque, but it is our gala, and it is our one night to have an excuse to be fancy for the evening. So if you want to be fancy with us, please come and celebrate. Please come and support. If you or your organization would like to be a donor, would like to partner with us, please let us know after the event. It's happening at Playa Studios, which is in Culver City, and it's a great venue. It would be, we'd just be delighted to have you. And part of our honorees are actually Exene Cervenka and John Doe, who are the main band members of X, a punk rock band that also they met here in Beyond Baroque. So many poets have walked through these doors and made history. So it's really an honor that they are part of our gala, as they're also in the middle of their last tour. So this is kind of like a special occasion that we get to have them there. And lastly, if you want to support further, please check out the books that we have on sale tonight. We have, of course, Jose Oseguera's book, as well as Tamara Miller's, Charles Jensen's, Elizabeth Metzger's books. And yeah, I think please, after the reading, please talk to any of the poets. I'm sure they'll be happy to sign their books. Our MC for the evening is Jimmy Vega. He will be opening tonight, reading some of his poems, and then introducing the next set of readers we have for you all. Jimmy Vega is the child of Mexican immigrants, a Chicanx, Los Angeles born and raised poet, educator, and interdisciplinary artist. Their debut poetry collection will be published by What Books Press in 2025. Formerly trained at California Institute of the Arts and at the University of California, Los Angeles, they are former 2023 ELL faculty fellow at CalArts. Vega's poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Broken Lens Journal, Maintenant, Fear's Pure Magazine, and elsewhere. They are the Associate Director of Beyond Broke Literary Arts Center. All right, please welcome Jimmy Vega.
Thank you, Ivan. Let's give it up for "And This House Is Only an S." Let's make some noise for Jose. We're super excited to host you, Jose, and it's a real honor to be asked to read here, to celebrate you and your work. So thumbing through the work, I drew up some through lines, and hopefully some of these poems can connect with your book. But I was also thinking about some cousins that we have here visiting from Washington. And I know that there's a poem that mentions Washington in here. So there's a little bit of some Washington poems as well. We're going to start with this one. It's called Persimmons. Sticky fingers prickling persimmons, marigold like crinkled crackling leaves on pavement, or blood on terracotta. In my grandmother's cornea, one with golden hair, now graphite, she smiles at me from afar, from across lawns on Abbott Road. And I think of my cousin Jorge, who was secuestrado by men with masks or crooked teeth in Michoacan streets, summer and stone. Did he cry when he was hungry? Did they bust his lip with semi-automatics? And did he pray for my madrina's Lupe's arms around him? 4:16 a.m., cold like gray or wet clay in the arroyo, while sticky fingers clenched for God or blood, pupils christened in blindfold, crawling over gravel and glass, like kissing ground in service of forgiveness or darkness. A woman walks on Beethoven Street, cradling cempasúchil flowers, and frowns at me as I taste iron and ash from burning Los Angeles. Sunlight hitting glass, color of persimmons, and I wonder if Jorge tasted tierra or if he just quivered his sticky fingers, reaching for another cigarette. 6:14 a.m., cold, like silent streets or pavement in the city he calls Patria. These next couple of poems are smaller. They're actually all sonnets. They were in part dedicated to our cousins from Washington tonight, but they are late, so they might not hear them. But this one, we do a lot of like driving from LA to Washington, and we're kind of always packed into a car, and this is kind of one of those moments. Are we like somewhere in Sacramento? Today, I saw a chrysalis and thought of you, waiting for my algorithm to digitize my own nostalgia. Way I feel invisible in July Christmas. There is a tree inside a room somewhere in Los Angeles. Have you seen them? Behind the curtain of the fireworks sky lawn, behind the tongue-tied solo cup martini impression. Sucks being the coolest kid in the room, but when I entered the Fred Meyer for my taxes and a lobotomy, there was something about denial that I refused to chew. Yet everyone watched me lacing up my surveilled body inside fiberglass container, guilty of everything in gloom. These next two are a pair of companion pieces that Rad Books kind of commissioned or invited me to take part in for a spontaneous publication. This one is titled Things I Forgot to Bring to Washington, List 4. Gum, an extra pair of shoes, deodorant, the muffins I left in the fridge, a phone strap, my patience, all of it. Please tell me if this is polite. Over-ear noise-canceling headphones, my 3 lucky coins. All your humanity will soon haunt you. Do your palms ever itch? In the pine mouth of my Douglas fir, I recall that my viscus was once my mother's. Things I forgot to bring to Washington, list 2. The bag where I keep my ego. Your favorite perfume. 2 apples, overripe crimson. Jalapenos for the salad dressing. A neck pillow. You see me and you stare back. My fave photograph. My sluggish serenity. A vase to put all my grief in. Plethora of flower memory. My 33rd ancestor reminds me all my mistakes are not only transient but ghost candelabra recurring headache inside my mind. Okay, so I've got 2 more for you all tonight. This next one, Jose, is actually, I wrote after our reading with Jose Hernandez Diaz earlier this year, and kind of thinking about the prose poem and also realizing that I don't really write prose poems. So I wrote this one. It's after Jose Hernandez Diaz. And the only thing to kind of note here is that at the end of the poem, there is a mention of a term called pareidolia. If you haven't heard what that, if you don't know what that term means, we probably have experienced it before. It's kind of when we look at maybe a socket, an electrical socket in the wall, and we can kind of see a face. That's what a pareidolia is. But this one is a prose poem about my uncle, after Jose Hernandez Diaz. Someone walks into the neighborhood liquor, mentioning the total collapse of civilization. Saddened, recalling my notes on humanism, I reach for my dusky scratch wrinkle of a gag. I thought I had seen my uncle one day on my way to work, down Venice Boulevard, crowning a dark baseball cap. Sometimes I try holding your grief in the palm of my hands, and sometimes I lose my focus, because even sustenance can terrain. In that reverberating glimmer, it was almost as if my uncle was casually providing his salutations to the not yet dead through nonverbal clairvoyance. Way a blue jay sparkles its tongue to show you light. Way my father caressed my uncle's feet as he was dying. There are moments we call collapse in between lines we say in front of a mirror, either static, near black, reflective, or other. Dark brown mustard turf, the sad kind. I wonder when exactly had I realized I was too late for lucid goodbyes, hood asphalt, quiet sound. I never see my cousins, save to bear their suffer. Tonight, I cannot locate the little Zen pocketbook of folk tales and allegories my Aristotelian teacher would read, like the one about a strawberry by the cliffside. There is a humming that rarely stutters, a manufactured hello, an acknowledgement of presence, like when the last time I saw my uncle, he was already memory I could not cling to. Ghetto bird, quiet display of suffering. How lonesome death, even with the nurse by your side. I tried telling you I can't be my own witness to the cosmic slow dance, even if the constant surveillance does induce ocular headaches, in such a way that our privacy is no longer private nor free, in such a way that I ache before afternoon catnaps, in such a way that empire leaves me gasping, living near or living parallel or sleeping next to freeways is socio-political redlining. Don't kid yourself. We're well past savoir-faire by this line. In that haze of momentary flicker, my uncle, with his gaze concentrating on asphalt, was my very own pareidolia, a stranger under the guise of my father's brother, one he lost to microscopic or otherwise tumors nesting in his brain, smiling. All right, this is the last one for tonight from me, and then we're gonna keep celebrating Jose and his work. This one is titled, the title is the first line of this poem, so I'm just gonna get right into it. I'm no longer a list of attachments, a sensory amalgamation as combustion neurosis. I am my mother's quiet prayer, transient flicker, brief as causality, hazy amber videotape hue, unexcavated memory. I am the formal cause of an unfound poem, weightless and yearning in Rambodian solitude. Now that I am in love and no longer a poet, instead hummingbird singing all of my grandmother's secrets, one whose ashes are kept in non-cobweb ancient church archival box revolution. I keep thinking about who you'd be if I'd never left, how the desert can't hold you or how all flowers beg for rain. I keep reading in the dark to hide my lizard brain in the form of licking my own wounds. If pain is everything, my tongue becomes my sacrificial ofrenda, yearning to meet you within golden hum. There is a street light lost inside all of us. How else could we radiate past midnight? If you've ever been followed inside fluorescent aisles of a convenience store, raise your hand and repeat after me. When my grandmother died, I lost a lot of everything, but not just anything. One who'd pray for me rushing towards slate streets. I can hear her voice when I focus on photosynthesis, or in the liminality of sleep lids, chasing moon cycles, elegiac and round and cylindrical, in a way that carries. How else did I ever fall asleep without you holding my hand? And now that I am in love and no longer a poet, the ending is refrain. Thanks, folks. All right, well, we're gonna keep the party going here, and up next we have Tamara Miller, a writer, performer, parent, and political organizer. Recent work has appeared in New Ohio Review, McSweeney's, Bellevue Literary Review, and elsewhere. In addition to an MFA in poetry from St. Mary's College of California, she holds degrees in the music and war strategy. Alum and scholarship recipient of Bread Loaf Community of Writers and Juniper. Please give a warm welcome to Tamara Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose. I'm very glad to be here. I'm going to read some poems from something I'm working on. It's a new series called Political Animal. These are unpublished and I've never read them before, which will be fun and terrifying. The moment I decided not to get a facelift in Istanbul was not, I am ashamed to say, after the second nurse was unable to start an IV, her face blank as she dug into my hand, veins squirming around the cannula like worms trying to avoid the hook. It wasn't after I noticed the pile of bloody gauze on the table in the room where I was told to change into the hospital gown, where I instead sat on the thin crocheted bedspread, waiting for something to change my mind, or after I was brought to a different room so they could check my heart rate with a strange metal contraption while someone cried behind the curtain next to me, not even after they showed me pictures of a woman who clearly looked better before. No, my vanity was so great that when the doctor told me I needed not only to get my eyes done, but to get my face lifted as well, I entered a 3-day blackout in which I went to multiple ATMs around the city to take out cash and was shuttled back and forth between the hotel, people in the elevator and lobby, and at breakfast wearing bandages on their noses, their heads, their arms, and the, in retrospect, rather filthy hospital. Not even after I spoke to a woman who had just done her face and nose and neck and ears, 3 complete surgeries in 2 weeks' time, who had the glassy, open stare of a dementia patient in a nursing home. And I couldn't tell how old she was, but she seemed unwell, as if she had given up more than money and some pieces of flesh to attain this transformation. No, not even then. It was the watch on his wrist. I couldn't stop staring at the watch, wondering if he put it on every morning before he came to the hospital, and why, because wouldn't it just have to come off when he spent the day in surgery? And then I wondered whether he took it off at all, and I imagined that he couldn't properly scrub in if he was still wearing the watch, and then I realized I didn't trust him to properly scrub in. But no, even then, if I am honest, I might have gone through with it. I might have. If he hadn't said that he would do the fox eye, and I said, I don't want the fox eye, and he said, you will like the fox eye, and I said, I won't, and he said, don't worry, I won't make you look Chinese, and I thought, oh no, I can't let a racist man operate on me. And when he left, I thought I might still be able to get back in time for breakfast, and I put my pillow back in my bag, gathered my book and my backpack, checked to make sure the hallway was empty, and ran. I became obsessed with men eating fruit for breakfast. I myself had been eating absurd amounts of cheese. I was entranced by the astonishing variety of braided cheese, by the glistening pails of olives, the piles of greenery, by a woman eating dill with a fork the way I might eat a salad, but nothing could top the plates of fruit. They filled them to overflowing and left them on the table to eat last. Slices of red watermelon, green plums, yellow apricots, yellow pears, peaches and nectarines, and grapes all piled onto enormous plates. And I realized how strange it is to me to see a man eating fruit. That in my whole life, I had never seen this before, and it became my obsession. I tried to photograph them eating and was caught again and again, my phone filling with photos of men staring at me, forks half raised to their glistening mouths. Because I have felt thin only twice in my life. The most recent being after I brought too little food on the John Muir Trail and slowly starved while hiking 20 miles a day up thousands of feet, hoarding my tiny reserve of calories from my also ravenous son. I had already given him so much of my body, half of my meals, all of my snacks, the gift of sustaining him coupled with resentment, and I wondered how mothers are able to give it all. I still had to hike, still had to wake up and walk every day, not ready to expire in the woods like a woman I read about with disdain, which makes me a bad person, I know, who was found dead in her tent just 1 mile away from the Appalachian Trail, where hundreds of hikers pass by every day, her diary recounting her last days, cocooned in her sleeping bag, waiting for the rescue which never came. But my gift of my body, the fat on my hips and thighs, was not so much generosity as it was vanity, because even as I felt the wolf mask clamp down over my face, as the weight of hunger and despair settled in my gut, I delighted in the loosening of my waistband, the sag of my underwear, the gradually expanding light between my thighs, which stopped whickering to each other with each step, falling instead into deep, delicious silence. At a party, I'm told that my past lives are choking me, literally, clustered around my throat chakra, and that my energy can't move up or down. And while I am masked and smiling my understanding, blandly nodding when he asks if I would like him to remove the negative influence I have carried for centuries or more, while allowing me access to the wisdom and depth of feeling that also comes with centuries or more of persecution and exile, I try to focus on his intention, bring myself into alignment as his hands flap around my face, his lips moving as he speaks to all the Tamaras past. But what of Tamara's future? My father dreamt of me before I was born. He sat in a coffee shop, something he regularly did when he was not dreaming, so mundane a dream, and I said to him, "My name is Tamara." And when he woke, he turned to my mother and said, "Her name is Tamara," and that was in fact my name. It means palm tree, symbol of the oasis, a place of rest, like this room, where I am surrounded by nodding people, so invested in my theoretical freedom, while I can barely focus, although I am supposed to be relaxing my throat. I am too distracted by the beauty of it all. Outside, the leafing magnolia tree has just begun to shed its blossoms, the branches fluttering against the window as the purple flowers sigh and expire. To find my past lives, I consult the oracle of Instagram. Here I was, kayaking on some northern river after I posed with friends, getting hooded, and we grinned inside a sunny apartment without furniture, friends on the porch coming or going, before we were shiny-eyed late-night elevator rides in Vegas, and austere Scandi white coffee shops in Brooklyn, a selfie in a bathroom, striped tile, blue tile, black tile, one with a cat, another posed with stately monstera, and then our beach days, beer and soft focus edges, sun-bent filters doing exactly what they were meant to do, creating an irrefutable sense of time past. Now we've come to the wedding years. Before, every summer was a hot slut showcase, dates and dreams still interchangeable. Here's the first time future spouse shows up in a picture, unnamed and untagged. Frosty edges and shadowy depths, we are getting toward the murky years. Posts were months or years apart, refreshing that time when we could have become anything. But my favorite thing is to find the before-after moment, when you and me and the life, the book publication, casting announcement, or the baby shower, the move, the job, the death, the divorce. I don't know what it is I am looking for when I scroll, but then there it is, the before and then the after. We all have one. We all have one. We all have one. Where is mine?
Tamara Miller, folks, give it up. Thank you, Tamara. Up next, we have Charles Jensen, the author of 3 poetry collections, most recently Instructions Between Takeoff and Landing. His hybrid book, blending memoir and film analysis, Splice of Life, will be published in May 2024, which is already published. We have it in the bookstore. The City of Los Angeles Department of Culture Affairs designated him a 2019-2020 cultural trailblazer, and he is the recipient of the Outright Arizona Commission, the Outright Nonfiction Chapbook Award, Zocalo Poetry Prize, and an Artist Project Grant from the Arizona Commission on the Arts. His poetry has appeared in American Poetry Review, Crab Orchard Review, The Journal, New England Review, and Prairie Schooner. And essays have appeared in Exposition Review, Passages North, and the Florida Review. He hosts The Write Process, a podcast in which one writer tells the story of crafting one work from concept to completion. He lives in Long Beach and directs the writers program at UCLA Extension. Please give it up to Charles Jensen.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be at Beyond Baroque, and congratulations, Jose. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this. I will be reading from Instructions Between Takeoff and Landing, and I apologize in advance. I'm going to start with poems that are written in the form of a reading comprehension exam. So you will hear a paragraph, and then there will be 4 questions for you, the reader, to think about and or answer. Hopefully it's more fun than school. This one is called The Water Cycle. Mythologies attribute destruction to an elemental force we can't see coming. Fire, flood, rivers thick with the red salt of blood. But what about the whisper, the one we make inside the ear of the man we love, when we tell him our time together's done? Breath and words a lattice work of ruin. Imagine the cloudless sky that makes rain. We don't know why it falls, but then it does. I lay my body down upon a hotel bed and told him, though I loved him, I could not be with him. There was a desert outside where it never rains, but when it does, it floods. The desert doesn't know what to do with water, so the water rushes away to someone who does. Quiz on this section. A, identify 3 grand spiritual narratives alluded to by the narrator in this passage. B, is it more or less difficult to be a homosexual? Be honest. C, draw a diagram of the nitrogen cycle. D, who is the villain of this story and every story? Memory. My family has always curated the Museum of Past Wrongs. Expert now allege it has more exhibits than even the Smithsonian. In fact, there are so many you could visit one each day and never see the whole collection before you die. My wing of the museum is very dark, and I don't like to spend a lot of time in there. It smells faintly of old fruit and basil leaves. For many years I slept in there, among the ruins of myself and everything I thought was true. I'd touch a piece of glass and see my own fingers appear on the other side, so I was never alone. Quiz on this section. A, what is your favorite exhibit in the museum described in the passage? B, will this narrator ever be able to truly love another human being? C, skip this item if you are a resident of the District of Columbia. All others, insert a $5 suggested donation. D, describe a place you visited that was always cold. I'm going to apologize for another poem. This is a dead dog poem. It's more about the dog dying. It's about everything dying. So great, can't wait to share it. It's called Mercy. The Dalmatian sank from me when I set him on the grass, pausing to kneel before his bones crumpled away. I knew he was reaching toward death. I wanted to help him snatch it in its jaws. I can trace this moment forward to the end of so many things. My address, the life I'd planned, the man I held until I saw I was never his. Weeks later, dog prone on the bed where sunset gilded him each afternoon, I stroked his ear's velvet and told him he would always be my good boy. When it comes to loss, I've learned to tear the limb away in one quick yank. You can shriek once, or you can cry your whole damned life. Pain has an echo. I started talking about a dog, but now I'm telling you how many times I've been a terrorist whose belief in a better world blooms only once the stem is cut. All right, and just to keep the fun rolling, I'm going to read a poem about dying. Me. So hopefully you will find humor here. It's meant to be a little gallows humor. It's called Mortality. It does contain a spoiler for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Apologies in advance if you've not watched it in the last 20 years. Mortality. I still might die before I get much older than this. I still might die before you die, love, so really we should get out and do something fun today instead of spending our time on our computers across the same room from each other. I still might die before Halley's Comet comes back around. I still might die before my nemesis gets what's coming to him. I still might die before we move out of this godforsaken hellhole into a nice place, somewhere our plants don't die after 2 weeks. I still might die before I see a volcano. I still might die before we get to Six Flags over Georgia. I still might die, but maybe you won't die. So I want you to know right now, you shouldn't feel bad the first time you have sex with someone else. I'm rooting for you. I still might die by shark attack, my greatest fear. I still might die in a plane crash, my second greatest fear. I still might die in a home accident, the most common location of personal injuries. I still might die in my scion. Please, God, don't let me die in a scion. I still might die and have my death made into a Lifetime TV movie I know you will ultimately watch over and over. I still might die and the movie they make about my life might be called Mother, May I Sleep with Danger, Part 2. I still might die like Mama Cass, choking on a hoagie. I still might die like Elvis, sitting on the can. I still might die like Judy Garland, drunk and sitting on the can. I still might die like James Dean in a car wreck I totally saw coming. I still might die in a car crash which probably wouldn't surprise anyone who's ever been a passenger in my Scion. I still might die of tuberculosis. I still might die of AIDS, cancer, flesh-eating virus, a bowel obstruction, an embolism, an aneurysm, a stroke, a bloody nose I can't control, a perforated ulcer, gangrene, scurvy, sepsis, multiple sclerosis, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Lou Gehrig's disease, hepatitis C, jaundice, liver failure, kidney failure, arsenic poisoning, an undetected heart abnormality that has been silently ticking away like a bomb inside my body for years, or bird flu. I still might die before I visit Legoland in Denmark, not California. I still might die like Joyce in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you'll come home and find me on the couch, but I won't be breathing, and you'll try to save me, but you won't be able to. I still might die and come back to life like the vampire in the morgue at the end of that episode. I doubt it, but I still might. I still might die before I've destroyed every copy of Stephenie Meyer's Twilight I can find. I still might die before I ever get around to reading Dune. I still might die before I finish writing another book that is better than Twilight, but shorter than Dune. I still might die in the Grand Canyon, which I won't mind unless it is by falling from a great height, in which case it would be my third most feared way to die. I still might die before I see the Rocky Horror Picture Show and a midnight movie. I still might die wearing fishnets at a screening of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I still might die while playing the role of Columbia or Magenta, but I'm really more of a Brad. I still might die after doing television commercials for medication to treat herpes, erectile dysfunction, overactive bladder, restless leg syndrome, or yeast infections. I still might die before they invent a pill that makes you happy without leaving you sad. I still might die before I need to stop wanting a pill that makes you happy without leaving you sad or impotent. I still might die with a computer full of unpublished manuscripts like Emily Dickinson, minus the computer. I still might die like Walt Whitman, completely misjudged and underappreciated in my time. I still might die like James Merrill, rich but sad. I still might die like Robert Lowell, complicated and sad. I still might die like John Berryman, sad and falling at a great speed from a high bridge, which is a significant fear of mine, see above. I still might die like Sylvia Plath, accidentally, but leaving behind a book that changes the lives of many people. I still might die like Anne Sexton, beautiful and jealous and sad. I still might die like River Phoenix or Heath Ledger, although it might first imply that my genius had actually been recognized instead of merely imagined by me. I still might die like the character Jake Gyllenhaal played in Brokeback Mountain, beaten to death for being gay. I still might die like Shirley MacLaine's character in The Children's Hour, struck by a falling tree for being gay. I still might die like Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Less Than Zero from an overdose after giving like a ton of blowjobs to rich white guys in Palm Springs for being gay. I still might die like any number of people who were killed for being gay. I still might die fighting for my life. I still might die feeling like this. I still might die while having sex, which is probably my most hoped-for way to die. I still might die having the best sex of my life, which seems fair. I still might die in that shiny, shimmery calm after sex when our sweaty bodies fall onto the bed next to each other and just try to absorb everything about that moment. That might kill me one of these times. That would be okay. I still might die before I figure out how to get happy. I still might die, sure, but I still might die happy. Thank you.
Charles Jensen, everyone. All right. Next up, we have Elizabeth Metzger, who is the author of Lying In, as well as The Spirit Papers, winner of the Juniper Prize for Poetry. Her third collection, The Going Is Forever, is forthcoming from Milkweed Editions in 2025. Elizabeth is a poetry editor at the Los Angeles Review of Books. Please welcome Elizabeth Metzger.
Hi, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling very entertained right now. And congratulations, Jose. It's such an honor to be here and to hear everyone's work, and thank you to everyone at Beyond Baroque. It's always fun. I can't see anyone. It's very dramatic. I decided in an effort to sort of be in conversation with some of the beautiful poems in Jose's book to try to organize something around sons and fathers and that sort of relationship, which I think is a through line for me. So I'm going to start with a poem from my first book and sort of move toward the present. This poem was before I actually had a child, but it was sort of a scary thought to have a male child in particular. So this is called Small Talk with an Imagined Son. I've felt cold enough toward you to soften a diamond with my teeth. All right, I'm a little afraid. It's the zeroing in of all that could possibly go wrong versus myself. I've crawled over your first potential steps, marking and proofing the sockets of the world for charge. When the dialogue of one God is split and distributed among humans, I'd rather you be dumb than electric. I hear you sobbing for me like a grown-up man, deep in the loins of a white-walled obsession. See, I'm afraid, reciting every Lord's and post-Lord's prayer. So then skipping forward to Lying In, about 5 years later, I had, this book is sort of based on the experience of a long bed rest pregnancy where I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I ended up having a son, and 5 months later, I took him back to my hometown. And so this is a poem that's about that first journey back. It's called Moses, New York. There was a boat on the pond, but no water. The water had sacrificed itself for your brutal thirst. Goodbye, cowboys. Goodbye, not knowing to speak. The boat is ready for me, baby. Enough with the reeds and the motherless. One singular horn will turn your face purple. A leaf blower may take your breath away. But the boat here is always and human. It floats on nothing. All the surfaces for floating and reflecting are gone. What good is what passes through us but clouds? There is a branch overhead, as if there were birds, and I would rather show you than go. And then I thought I'd read 3 poems. I'm going to read 2 father poems. These are all from the new book, The Going Is Forever, which I discovered sort of late in the process of writing it, that there were 3 figures. They were all men in my life and my family, and they were all sort of absent presences in very different ways. And yeah, the first 2 are for my father, who passed away 2 years ago, but again, was sort of a an absent presence in my life. So his death, in a way, made him more present. And I felt I could claim having a father in a new sense. So this is about the one time he took me to a movie, The Nightmare Before Christmas. My father took me to one movie in our long life on earth, confined in one apartment. He took me to the world he came from, secret reason he could not father. Then he left me, 6 or 7, to get popcorn. I remember daydreaming that I was kidnapped. Furious to find me, my father scoured every row and theater. Would he be in tears, ever after by my side, or blame me? I can't remember the movie's plot, but it was the first animation I trusted, while my father needled above his feelings. What did I trust? Unreal skeletons lurching full-mooned and curlicued. Ever since, when I watch something beautiful, I start making up the story. Inevitably, someone is lost. Then the loss is thanked for everything. This poem is a funny one, actually. It started off being a poem for my parents, both. And as I realized revising it that it was really just about my father again, what I had to do was a really weird process where it's almost like it had to be reversed, where the ending became the beginning. And I have no idea why, but I just thought that was a kind of curious way that process insisted itself going in a certain direction. So it's called For My Father. If I could thank you still, it would be for your obliviousness. I got to keep the child you made. Here, from the top of the earth, no fire would be built to make me forgiving. We would never have to stand upright again. Make the house leaves. Make the love that never had room for me. Then stay alive. I will climb in, with my dry bark heart still pulsing, like my first day outside paradise. And then I'll end with a poem for my son. So after this bed rest and sort of realizing, coming to terms with the fact that he was alive and sort of getting back into daily life, what was weird is that about 4 years into it, death became a topic again because he started to ask about it. And I thought I'd be prepared for that somehow, but it soon made me aware how my answers in trying to give him any kind of comfort or clarity were completely confusing to me as well. So this sort of stems from a real life conversation. Don't make me. When I told you the crab on the beach was dead, you asked me, what's dead? I said, this is his shell, but you must have heard soul. A year-long misunderstanding. A summer later, unable to sleep, you said, no, you told me the body is the part that goes, the soul stays. And I said, no, you have it backwards, the shell stays and becomes the beach again. I waited for you to ask after the soul, where the crab goes, practiced in my head an inconsolable hour, I don't know or nowhere, scraping my mortal voice like bright meat, when suddenly you shot up from the covers, done crying. So the going is forever? Thank you.
Elizabeth Metzger, folks, give it up, give it up. All right. Last but certainly not least, our author of And This House is Only a Nest. We have a lot of books in the bookstore for sale, so I do encourage everyone to purchase one tonight. I also do want to mention one more time, this event was free, right? So think about ways to support Beyond Baroque, either through a donation, becoming a member, buying a ticket or a sponsorship for the gala to kind of continue the literary arts here in Los Angeles. Without further ado, Jose Oseguera is the author of the poetry collection, The Milk of Your Blood. His poems have appeared in Chautauqua, Sonora Review, North Dakota Quarterly, and Catamaran. He was the recipient of the Nancy Dew Taylor Award and has been nominated for Best of the Net, Pushcart, and Forward prizes. Please make some noise for Jose Oseguera.
thank you. Thank you so much. I feel so blessed. I don't use that word a lot, but I do feel very blessed tonight. I feel very lucky to basically thankful to Jimmy, to Beyond Baroque for allowing me to share my work, for allowing me to invite other great poets. Thank you, Charlie, Elizabeth, Tamara, and Jimmy for being here supporting me. I want to thank Connor Wolf and everyone at Wayfarer Books for helping me make this a reality. And last and not, but not least, I want to thank everybody here tonight for making time to come here and supporting the arts. Like Jimmy said, just buy something. You don't have to buy this. Just buy a book. Support them because they've been around for a long time. They weathered through the pandemic, but it's only because of the support. So please support them. It's going to mean a lot. And let me get things started. This first one is called Dime cómo te llamas. Dime cómo te llamas y te diré quién eres. Tell me your name and I'll tell you who you are. Spanish proverb. In Mexico, firstborn males carry their names as they do their crucifixes, heavy and golden on the nape of their neck. So you don't simply have one person named Little Bastard Jr. or yet another Bastard the Third. You get a bundle of little bastards named after the Grand Master Bastard, the only one who can never remember who you are, defeating the whole purpose of even having a name. The desire for your son to bear your father's name, which was his father's youngest brother's name who died at 21, becomes so great that birthing is nothing more than a game in this perverse botany. One that requires the scrotums to be as virile as the wombs are fertile. It's war of the roses without the war or the roses, but all the casualties and hostages. Hey, you becomes a more civilized way of distinguishing one person from the rest of their similarly named cousins and uncles. Any arborist would take one look at this family tree, its roots, seed and soil, and deem its long branches ripe for firewood. The ancient tradition of genealogical nomenclature is a lesser crime against humanity, a misdemeanor at best. It's public urination marking one's territory, a branding, a form of physical, living, breathing graffiti, a curse. Not because they hate us. After Tao Te Ching. I spent prom night in the school's handball courts playing pachuco with my friends. Boys trained like dogs to look down, hands on their head, legs spread, ricocheting the tiny atomic blue rubber racquetball as hard as our budding muscles could off of one another's bodies until our tawny asses and backs, balmy but not as wet as our parents, turned purplish Prussian. Passed down to us by our fathers, uncles, older brothers, and cousins in between jail sentences, this helped to toughen us up, a Mexican predilection for pain or presage for when the time of our arrests and incarcerations came. It'd probably be for stealing something people like us should never be able to afford, for smoking stuff too hard even for our growing bodies, or smoking a fool for wearing a baseball cap stitched with the wrong letters. Cholo cuneiform etched forever black and white on his frigid brown skin, cheeks turgid sweet on the cold pavement for the cops to unwrap like a chocolate. Watching each other smoke weed out of punctured apples, a heart with two arteries pumping incense, skunk urine, and cider vinegar, toking vapor until our cheekbones clenched as plums, we suppress the red-eyed, ain't nobody give a shit about us blues, smoking an apple a day to keep them fuckers away. We felt as weightless in the Sun Valley breeze as the wishes we mushroomed out like genies, mouths gaped like exit wounds. The long plumes danced skyward to twirl as if the moon took them by the hand. The sound of sirens diffused in the smog-bruised night sky, dispersing us into the neighboring homes, starting to yawn their lights on. The red and blue piercing through our haze, reminded us to run away and hide. But the fog blurring the streetlights lifted our chins and led us home through the still dark. Another day was coming, and soon everything would be quiet again. Hot water soup. At your age, I could find my own food and cook it, Dad would say when we tell him we were hungry. Mom's response to his parental wisdom, well, that's because your dad and his brothers were raised like animals. The few times he did cook, Dad used to heat up water in a pockmarked pot, big enough for a single mug. Why don't you make enough soup so that your kids can also eat? Mom would say, as the soft-boiled water's chlorinated rank softened the acrid track scent of metal scraping against a rusted burner grate. It's not soup, Dad said, and poured the liquid into his cup. It's just water. He blew on the porcelain lip and slurped with a stare as empty as his stomach. Well, at least warm up enough for them too, Mom said. She was like a bitch who'd rather eat her puppies than watch them go without food. Damned if she didn't try to make her thin paycheck spread as far as spilt water. As Mom walked towards the door, Dad placed the cup on the counter and embraced her as carefully as one would hold a nearly full receptacle, ready to spill equal measures of love and hate. There was no hug or kiss from her end, just a stranger embracing another stranger. A mop, vacant stoneware, and not a woman who had carried his children on 3 separate occasions. As they stood there, all they loved, hated, and hoped for was as visible as the arsenic and phosphorus caked on the sides of the charred pot. She dug her claws into his skin, as she did into every word she spoke to him, and walked out the door. So, I guess you guys probably want some too, Dad said, when he heard Mom close the garage and slam shut the car door. We drank a lot of tap water soup, not for the taste, but rather because it made our bellies pop out and our guts feel warm inside and out. The cocktail of minerals wouldn't kill the hunger, but it drowned out the growling, our flaws, and deliver us into a torpor that felt nice until Mom got back from work. Time to leave the room where I've been growing hair from my face, after forest ganders loiter for Joe Jimber. The hair that shrubs under my nose and ivies under my jaw and down my neck is long enough to grab, patchy like my father's, archipelagos and peninsulas of crabgrass follicles, thicker at the chin than at the cheeks. My son submerges his 6-month-old fingers into the dark mane and grips. A sharp whisper to my nerve endings. Tell me when it hurts, and then try to forget about it. The hair I've been growing on my face is dry and gnarled, but never dead. Stubborn weeds that line his way. He mouths and soaks the shag, Christ thirsty for the sponge on the hyssop, as if he can eucharize their sour wine into mother's milk. These whiskers are all he knows, unaware of what or who bathes and dresses him for bed, as Mary Magdalene prepared her Lord's body for resurrection. I am a Pangaea whose gaps he'll have to learn to ignore, a mass of everything he knows outside the womb, an amnesis of the time we were once one substance, he the vinegar, I the mother. Now as he coos in my arms, we are one again, an island in this world whose fragments are stable enough to keep him still while he grows. All for the time when he comes alive on his own. He nestles his head against my beard and falls asleep within minutes, minutes that slip their small bodies between ours, regardless of how close we hold one another, minutes that leave without saying goodbye, and though I've nailed down plenty of them in pictures, they're minutes whose empty husks remind me months later that they'll never return. One day I too will wear stars. Supermassive black holes could form before galaxies form and act as the seed nuclei for galaxies to form around them. Or supermassive black holes can form at the center of galaxies as a result of collisions of many stars and mergers. There is no way to stop the formation of a black hole after you've accrued a certain amount of mass at the center of an active galaxy. Ann Worrell, observational astronomer. Colonel Popcorn is my son and commander, nay, prince, and the popper, when it wafts its plumes of butter and billowed maize into our inner city realm, is his domain. He demands with a maze of grunts and bellows the warm puffs detached from their broken shells. His lips part with trust, yet bites down on my fingers with his 7 teeth. The white flesh melts on his tongue, a host fed by a guest, and swallows without question. The more I give him, the more he wants. My mother-in-law once told me that when she was a little girl in Jersey, her grandmother left kernels heating in a pot. When she returned, the copper grains fired like BBs out of the kettle, a singularity pushing matter away, airborne as cabbage whites fresh out their cocoons. They fell all around them, snowflakes in April. I posted a picture of my boy with a smirk on his face and a corny caption underneath. Mom replied on my wall, "Who taught my baby how to eat palomitas de maíz?" I had no answer because what she asked wasn't a question, but a star that a black hole had partially or completely torn apart and was slowly consuming it bit by bit. The hazard in her tone wasn't due to the inherent choking risk or my gag, but in someone other than her having communion with her only grandchild, the kernel of her world, nay, universe. I reassured her that he was as much hers as he was his other grandmother's, a son given to us all. But don't you get it? She replied in a private text. A secret message rolled up in the craters of a wailing wall. The mother and her mother are the ones who shape a child's soul. She seemed resigned to coming second, not to my suegra, but to her whiteness. I didn't reply, but wanted to tell her that as the largest black holes grow faster than their galaxies, one day our bodies too will hopefully explode like popcorn under the immense and wondrous pressure of love, a heat that will despoil the seed from the dirt, husk, and cob down to its hull, binding it tight until only to present its innermost soft, its sincere, that which holds no fear. This is my last piece. It's titled Chestnut Sun. Gray rested peacefully in plumage, wearing Montezuma's headdress, under the nest where he had been born only weeks before, death in gray. A pair of mourning doves chose to nest in our hanging mandevillas. I think the fat one is the girl, my wife said, and the skinny one on the balcony rail is the boy. We named them Gael and Guy, as in the French pronunciation, not because he was a guy bird. A few days later, I wasn't surprised to find 2 eggs in their nest, perfectly white. How was Gail able to balance the weight of minutes, her empty bones, and summer's heat above them? She somehow knew that the passage of time would grant her squabs the urge to be born. When my wife told me she looked fat and wanted to hire a West Hollywood trainer, we found out she was pregnant with our second, the product of her ex and mine. I found this chick's discarded shells curled like sardine can lids, and I thought of my mother and how my son's smile reminded her of her ex's mischievous grin. As the squabs grew bigger, they hopped out of the elevated nest and onto the balcony. Gail's leaves of absence lingered in the dry air until one day she never came back. The squeakers looked like their father, so we named the smallest one Gray because he was gray. And the bigger one Ganja because she was growing like a weed. My son began to thrash his head against his high chair whenever I tried to hand feed him bits of bread, and bruised his cheek on the side of our coffee table when he let go of my hands to walk in his body. One night, our dog chased the fledglings off the balcony, holding one in its mouth. I think Gray was already dead, my wife said. The chestnut sun peered through Wilshire smog, only to witness gray eyes partially occluded. I stared at the birds' stiff feathers, the dirt lacing them, and the emptiness left within. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jose Oseguera, one more time for Jose. And this house is only a nest. Please pick it up. Support Jose. Support all of our writers tonight. We do have a little bit of a reception tonight, so feel free to stick around. Thanks for being here, folks.